Welcome to Maths Bridge. Let's learn Java programming. Folks, please do visit us at our YouTube channel Maths Bridge. I think you are already subscribed to the channel. If you have not, please do subscribe the channel and then support us. Thank you and then happy learning. Here is our today's agenda. Let's look at loop structures concept. Loop structures also known as iterations. What is mean by loop? A loop means a repeatedly executes the same set of instructions until the termination condition met. That's what mean by loop. So if you look at this flowchart, so this is an entry point. It comes to the condition. You are checking the condition. Condition is nothing but is a Boolean expression, right? Boolean value. Based out of the state of this condition, you can branch out the control to this path, true path, or the false path. Okay, if it is true, the condition is true, certainly the control goes to this direction. This is where we have action 1 tasks, means like a set of instructions which fulfill the requirement of action 1, right? The action 1 block can be like one statement or more than one statements, depends upon your logic. Okay, these are all things you will be executed. Okay, and then comes back to the condition. Again, check for the condition. If the condition is true, then again going into this direction and redo the same set of actions as part of the action 1 will be executed and then move on. These loop iterations keep continuous until termination condition met within this checking. Once the termination condition met, then it branch out to the other direction. That's called a false direction. Once you exit from this loop, what happens? You have a set of statements in as part of a action 2 block will be executed. And this is how loop structure works. How many variety of loops we have? We have a while loop, do while loop, for loop. There are the 3 loops that we have. Let's see one by one. With this, I'll take a quick note of it. Okay, based out of the condition, the loop in a block of code continuously executes. So loop through a block of code while specified condition is true. That is called a while loop. Do while is another way around. It will always be executed at least once, even if the condition is false, because the code is executed before the condition is tested. So in while loop, we first check the condition and then do the rest. In the do while, the condition we put it in the last, so that the within the block of the loop it executes once and then check the condition. So at least once, one guarantee is there for the do while do direct while, but no, you first check the condition. If the condition is false, you just terminate, right? You are completely skip the loop. For loop is similar to the while loop, but the way we are implementing bit different. Loops through a block of code specified number of times. So all these loops so you need to have a control statements which are called as a break, continue, and go to. We see an example like how this will work. So let's look at a general form of while loop. In your program, this is how you do. The while is a reserved keyword. This is a condition, Boolean expression. If the expression is true, then this is what the block. So block is enclosed by your flower brackets. So if it is a single statement, you don't require a block, the brackets, otherwise you can maintain. But best practice always better be, use this, you know what I mean, right? So that's good. Let's look at a quick statement like the conditions, can be any Boolean expression. The body of the loop will be executed as long as the condition expression is true. When the condition becomes a false, control passes to the next line, right? If it is a false list termination, that means you are exiting from the loop, as simple as, right? Then all the following instructions will be executed. These are called curly braces, right? The curly braces are unnecessary if only a single statement is being repeated. If you have one statement in a body of the loop, then you don't require to have curly braces. Otherwise, always be a best practice to having them in the while loop. Got it? Now let's look at a do while loop general form. Do and body of the loop, and then while. Along with while, you are actually having condition, right? This is similar to the while loop, but this is a bit different, like the condition you added to the end. But make sure you have to put like a semicolon, while condition semicolon. Previously you don't have them, right? So what happens here is each iteration of the do while loop first executes the body of the loop, right? Then evaluates the Boolean expression, the condition. If this expression is true, then the loop will repeat. If the expression is false, that means like a termination condition met, then exits from the loop, right? That is how do while works. Now let's look at a for loop. Here is a general form: for, initialization, condition, iteration, and body of the loop. So let's understand these three, what it means to us as per as for loop implementation. This is called a initialization. So when loop first starts, initialization is the first thing that will executes. Okay, that will be executed. So this initialization variable is also known as a loop control variable. It acts like a counter if you look at, right? So once initialization is done, the next one is condition. Condition is like a Boolean expression. The way we see is like a while loop condition, do while loop condition. So this is like a condition for the for loop, but this is kind of a loop control condition. So is a Boolean expression, right? As long as the condition is true, this body of the loop, like the instruction that you mentioned within the body of the for loop, will be executed repeatedly, right? That's the condition means. But there is a in condition we have loop control variable and also target variable, right? The target variable will be updated in this area. This is called as a iteration. So iteration portion of the loop will be executed at the end of the loop. Say first initialization and check for condition, and then do the body of the loop if the condition is true, then executes this and then comes back to the condition and check for the condition state. If it is true, again executes the body of the loop and then look for the iteration condition. It could be increment, it could be decrement in that short, and then comes back. This is basically like keep up your target value and then variable control values. That's what. Let's see in a example problem, you will be clear. Got it? So if the condition reaches that termination part, like when it meets a termination condition, then automatically control comes out of the loop and then executes the next immediate statements after the for loop, right? That is how loop concept works for loop. This diagram illustrates the concept of loop with a nested if else statement. In the last session, we have seen this how nested if else can be implemented as a use case, right? This is a use case which demonstrated the nested if else, but the extension to it is a loop. Means like all this you look at controls, bringing back to the starting point. That's called a looping, right? Loop with the nested if statement. So if you look at this sort of the flow chart, then you're gonna understand where the loop comes, where the forward direction branching comes, and accordingly what programmatic concept that you have to pick to implement. So walk through with me, looking at sample programs to demonstrate the concept that we have seen so far in loop structures. Okay, let's look at first example as a while loop. Great. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to print the first n natural numbers. N probably here is at 10 numbers. First 10 numbers in order to print like how we can use a while loop. That's the whole idea. Okay, this demo. So what we do, like first let's run this program and then we can talk about like, okay, great, it's a promising. So I am getting like a 1 to 10 values. That's good. So now let's explore what this program it does for us. So if you could recall the general form, the syntax is while and then condition. Do you see this is a boolean condition? N is a variable which we initialized above the while loop, int n equal to 1. Now you are comparing 1 less than or equal to 10. So 1 less than or equal to 10 is true, right? The boolean expression is true. So this condition is true. As long as this while condition is true, the block of the while loop should be executed, right? So, and hence how many statements we have in the while loop? So in while block we have two statements, like a system output and then increment, right? So system output is like, when n is equal to 1, it prints 1. That's why we get a 1. Now after printf done, now we see the line number 14, we have a n plus plus. What this means, like you are adding n equal to n plus 1. So previously 1, right? Now it is becomes like a something like this, n equal to n plus 1, right? 1 plus 1, so becomes like what happens, this value is 2, right? Now it goes to while, starting of the while, because this is a looping, right? Again here condition, now n is 2, right? 2 less than or equal to 10, so condition still true, and hence it prints 2. Again incremented by 1, now n become 3. Come back to the while condition. So now checking condition 3 less than or equal 10, so still condition is true. So this is how I think it is keep getting printed all the numbers. Let's assume that it reaches a n equal to 9 and then prints 9 and then backs to here, right? So and then 10, n equal 10, then it is 10, n plus plus, how much? 10 plus 1 is 11. So now look at the condition, 11 less than or equal to 10. Is it right? No, it's a false statement, right? So condition state is actually false, a termination condition. That means now you are exit from this while loop. The control comes out of this while loop and then see are there any following statements. If so, it will execute, otherwise it terminates. This is how while loop works. Now look at a do while. In do while, what is the syntax we have? Initializing the number is like again that's the first step that we have to do. Now we are implementing do. So do while start with a do and then block of the while loop, and after curly we are actually adding like a while with a condition. This is called a do while. Here what happens is like executes the line number 10 and then comes to in a loop, and then this block of the statements executes, then it look for like a while condition, right? That's why we are saying like at least once the block of the while loop, body of the while executes, right? Then check for the condition, right? So if the condition is true, then this loop repeats. If the condition is false, is nothing but a termination condition met. That time the control, the program execution control comes out of the loop and then see if there are any following statements that will be executed, otherwise it just terminates. That is how this works. So if I have taken same example to see the difference in output, but ideally speaking, like I should expect the same output. Do you see? Exactly the same output, right? So probably I think I can add this is a do while loop. So to avoid the confusion, let me rerun again so that we are sure that like it is executed from this do while. So now let's look at the one more, why this do while is so important for us, right? So why do you think it's important? So we are expecting that like at least once the loop has to execute before it gets terminated. That's the kind of requirement where we have to use like a do while. Assuming that like you are prompting user to enter some number, based on the number you are actually making a choice, right? What should be doing next and all. So let's have a fun of this program, how the do while really works for us. So I'm gonna run this program now. Great. See, before actually a condition, what happens is like it just displays user to like a prompting user, like enter one to display once, enter two display twice, three thrice, four means four times, five means five times. You give a one number, then automatically it picks that number, and then based on the number the loop will execute here. That is how I implemented. So let's have like what do you want to give an input. Let's say 3. My expectation is like a hello world should be print thrice. Do you see? Great. So I don't have too much of satisfaction. Let me do it again. Rerun this program. Now I'm going to give maybe 5. Oh, that's good. It's working. But what I will do, like still I can test one more. Now I can give like a different number. I don't want to give any one of this number. Let me put like a 6. What would happen? It is kind of scolding me like boss, you have to enter only between 1 to 5. Let me give like a 0, but still it is scolding. So if I can put like maybe 4, it takes as a valid input and then displays 4 times. So these sort of things can be doable using like a do while loop. That's the beauty. Now let's look at a for loop. How we are implementing for loop? This is the syntax for loop, right? General form is like a for initial condition. I mean initialization is like the variable that I declared and initialized. This I am going to use in condition. This is called condition. Basically evaluates for the Boolean expression, true or false. This is like looping, right? It's like an iteration. So this is like an iteration control number. This is like a target 10 means like. So very first time that when it gets starts execution of this loop, the first thing that it does is like it initializes this statement, it executes this portion, n is equal to 1, very first time. Then goes to the second condition. This condition is basically if n is equal to 1, n is less than or equal to 10. That's the condition. Based on the condition, if the condition is true, then body of the for loop will be executed. Once the body of the loop is done, then it executes this n plus plus. This is kind of a what I can call it as a iteration, right? The iteration number basically. So what we are doing here is logic is n equal to n plus 1, incrementing the n value, so that at the starting of the loop again I will check with the new n value, right, against target value. So as long as this is condition is true, this concept of sequential instructions repeatedly executes. When condition met with a termination condition, then the loop will be executing, exit out. Do you see what I'm saying? So let's run this program. Do you see? It's the same number. You are not really changing anything. For loop demo. Okay. So let me take one more example. Okay. Let's say you have a requirement wherein if you see like n is equal to 5, you wanted to break the loop. You don't want to let the loop continue. That's an idea. So how it works? Let's see how it works, right? I will run this program, see what happens. Do you see? So n equal to 1, n equal to 2, n is equal to 3, n is equal to 4, n is equal to 5. Until then I think my system out is actually printing the values sequentially. But when every time it actually checks because this condition, if condition which I've added as part of a body of the for loop. So as long as you are in this loop, you are checking this condition. If n equal to 5, if n equal to 5, when this condition met, then what happens is like we added a instruction called break. Break means like it breaks the loop iteration. That means like you are exit from the for loop, and hence so your for loop stops at n is equal to 5 and then skips the rest of all remaining conditions. But you can call it as a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That never going to print now because you came out of the for loop. Got it? This is the one way we can think of how we are going to use the break for terminating the loop before loop finishes its termination condition. Right? Let's look at one more fun example using continue. Let's run this program first and then see you can realize how it works. Do you see? Continue. What is the difference that you are seeing? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, no 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my god. What happens? 5 is not there. Let's look at this. What happens here? In this for loop, I added a condition called if n equal to 5, continue. This means whenever whenever you see a continue as a statement, what happens is your pointer, your execution pointer goes back to start of the beginning of the loop. It skips all the statements below this continue. Right? That is why, for example, I added a system.out.println after if. So, but because I see continue here in this condition, when n equal to 5, you intentionally skip execution of this statement and then control put it back to a beginning of the loop, and hence I could not get that printed on the console. You see? So this is how continue break works, right? Which we widely use in for loop, right? But this can be continue is fine, but the break can be used in any one of the loop to control the to break the loop iterations on certain criteria. Right? If at all there is a need you to actually not let the loop continue on based out of certain conditions, then preferably use like a if with break. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, click on bell icon and leave the comments. Happy learning. Thank you. Stay tuned to upcoming sessions.